Even Ukraine cannot believe what Europe plans to do to Russia. In order to combat Russia's aggression in Ukraine, Europe has developed a comprehensive and ambitious plan that combines diplomatic, legal, economic, and military measures. In addition to helping Ukraine, these steps are meant to put pressure on Russia to stop its invasion and look for a diplomatic solution. In this video, we will go through 7 key points of Europe's plan to address the ongoing crisis and push for an end to the conflict. Number 7. Enhanced military support for Ukraine. Significantly increasing its military assistance is one of the EU's main plans to support Ukraine. This entails providing Ukraine with substantial amounts of ammunition, cutting-edge weapons, and essential military equipment. In order to support the continuing artillery conflict in eastern Ukraine, the plan calls for supplying 1.5 million rounds of artillery shells. Ukraine will also acquire drones for offensive and surveillance missions, as well as air defense missiles, which are crucial for fending off Russian aircraft bombardments. Additionally, the EU is concentrating on giving Ukrainian forces comprehensive military training to improve their capacity to use and maintain advanced weaponry. By giving Ukraine the tools to resist and repel Russian offensives, this extensive military support package aims to both increase the cost of Russia's invasion and guarantee that Ukraine can continue to defend itself against its ongoing aggression. Number 6. Integration of Ukrainian defense production with the EU. Integrating Ukraine's defense sector with the European Union's is another important aspect of Europe's agenda. The goal of this program is to establish a long-term, sustainable defense partnership rather than merely provide short-term assistance to Ukraine. Europe intends to help Ukraine repair and increase its capacity to produce defenses at home. The EU hopes to assist Ukraine in producing its own weapons and military equipment by easing the transfer of military technology and providing access to European defense supply chains, thereby reducing Ukraine's future reliance on foreign aid. The general security of both Ukraine and Europe may be improved by this integration, which may also result in cooperative defense projects between Ukrainian and European businesses. Additionally, it will assist Ukraine in strengthening its defense capabilities. Seizure of frozen Russian assets. Apart from diplomatic and military measures, the European Union is considering a new method of punishing Russia financially, taking back more than $200 billion in Russian assets that have been frozen in European banks. These money were first frozen in reaction to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and are owned by Russian oligarchs, government officials, and state-backed organizations. European authorities are now thinking about allocating these resources to support Ukraine's reconstruction, humanitarian assistance, and military requirements. The idea of taking these frozen assets to further isolate Russia economically is gaining traction, despite the complicated legal foundation for such a move. In addition to having a substantial financial impact on Russia, this would make it abundantly evident that Europe is willing to take strong action to make Russia answerable for its deeds. Number 4. Strict enforcement of sanctions. Russia has been subject to a number of severe sanctions from the European Union in an effort to destabilize its economy and cut it off from the world financial system. In an effort to restrict Russia's capacity to fund its conflict in Ukraine, these sanctions have targeted important facets of the Russian economy such as energy, technology, defense, and banking. The EU has placed asset restrictions on hundreds of Russians, including billionaires, bureaucrats, and military leaders with close ties to President Vladimir Putin, in addition to sectorial penalties. It is more difficult for these people to carry on their business or profit from their ties to the Russian government because they are prohibited from entering EU nations and their assets are frozen. The EU has imposed political as well as economic sanctions in an effort to isolate Russia on a global scale. European leaders have stressed that these restrictions must be strictly enforced going forward and have warned that any attempt by Russia to evade them will result in much more severe penalties. Number 3. Diplomatic pressure and ultimatums. Europe is applying diplomatic pressure to compel Russia to participate in peace negotiations, in addition to economic and military measures. Together with other Western partners, the EU is putting Russia under pressure to stop the fighting in Ukraine. European leaders have stated unequivocally that more penalties and isolation will follow if Russia rejects a ceasefire. In order to put up a united front, the European Union has cooperated with the G7 group, through its close diplomatic connections with nations like the United States and Canada. This coordinated strategy shows that the West is adamant about Ukraine and increases diplomatic pressure on Russia. By demanding probes into war crimes and other transgressions of international law, the EU is also using global institutions like the UN to put further pressure on Russia. Number 2. Support for a UN investigation into Russian actions. International probes into Russia's activities during its invasion of Ukraine have been actively pushed by Europe. European politicians are backing UN investigations into Russian war crimes, including the use of banned weapons, the targeting of people, and alleged horrors including torture and enforced disappearances. As part of a larger initiative to hold Russia responsible for its activities on the international scene, the EU is supporting these probes. Europe wants to make sure that Russia is held accountable for its actions, not just militarily and economically, but also legally by supporting the documenting of war crimes. In addition to serving as a foundation for any future prosecutions in international institutions like the International Criminal Court, these investigations may bolster the argument for additional international sanctions. Additionally, this work will contribute to the development of a narrative about Russia's transgressions of international law, which may influence global perception and further distance Russia from other countries. The EU thinks it can assist guarantee justice for Ukraine and fortify the international legal system pertaining to armed conflicts by endorsing a worldwide legal reaction to Russia's conduct. Number 1. Coordination with global partners. The EU has been working closely with its international allies such as the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, and others to present a united front against Russia. This coordination ensures that the pressure on Russia is consistent and comprehensive, with each partner contributing to the military, economic, and diplomatic measures aimed at isolating Russia. The EU has aligned its sanctions with those of the United States and other countries, ensuring that Russia cannot easily circumvent these measures by seeking alternative markets or financial systems. Europe's strategy to counter Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not just a regional endeavor, it is part of a larger global response. By guaranteeing that it receives the backing it needs from a variety of international partners. By sustaining a cohesive international response, Europe hopes to pose a serious threat to Russia's aggressiveness. This multilateral cooperation approach is essential to guaranteeing that Russia is subject to intense, ongoing pressure from the international community, which makes it more challenging for the Kremlin to pursue its military goals without suffering dire repercussions. These moves demonstrate Europe's multi-pronged strategy of using economic pressure, legal action, diplomatic efforts, and military backing to force Russia to end its war in Ukraine. If you liked our video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.